Call the meeting of the Committee on Energy Finance and Policy to order. We have a quorum. Although we won't be taking any action today, we do have a quorum in committee here. I just want to welcome everyone. I want to welcome all the members of the public and those from the Capitol Complex, and welcome to committee. We've got a great agenda for this year. Looking forward to getting to know each and every one of you a little bit better, from staff to members as well. And you know, as we move forward through session, we're looking to really focus on making Minnesota a better place when it comes to energy, and making sure we have a good environment for families and businesses across the state. And so with that, my name is Chris Wazinski. I'm your chair, but also I represent House District 15A down in the southwest Minnesota, Marshall, Minnesota being one of my largest cities. Have the counties of Lackaparl, Yellow Medicine, and Lyon County, just a sliver of Chippewa. And with that, we'd love to introduce folks. Indiana, you maybe want to start us down in the end and introduce yourself, where you're from, and yeah, we'll get going. So.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. Well, my name is Indiana Smallman. I am the GOP's researcher for this session. I originally came from the Senate. I interned there for a year and worked there for the last 2 years as the legislative assistant for Senator Tory Westrom.
Just a reminder, everyone, we have to switch our mics on and off. So just run that switch, and you'll do great. So.
Well, I'm Representative Spencer Igo. This is now my third term on the Energy Committee, so excited to be back. I represent about half of Minnesota's Iron Range up in House District 7A, so looking forward to the year ahead and working with you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Representative Dave Baker, this is my 6th term that I'm entering in. This is my 4th term on the Energy Committee, which I'm super happy to be back on. I missed the last couple of sessions, and this has always been one of my favorite committees. There's a lot going on with this policy work, with our technical things that affect the munis, the co-ops, the smallest providers for electricity and reliable energy and affordable energy. Mr. Chair, I know that's your goals this year, and I'm happy to be a part of trying to do that. I'm a small business person back in the Candiway County area, straight west of here. We run a small company, my wife and I do, and so it's an honor to be here, Mr. Chair. Looking forward to getting to work. Thanks.
My name is Mike Wiener, represent Area 5B, center part of the state. 2nd term. Find the Energy Committee electrifying. I'm super charged to be here. But I look forward. This is something that affects all of us in Minnesota. You know, we often see the divide, rural, metro, but this affects every single citizen, our businesses, farms, everyone. So look forward to making some good contributions to our state. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Tom Sexton. This is my first term. My background, I served 26.5 years in the Air Force. My last assignment was teaching at the U.S. Army War College, where I actually created a class called Energy and National Security. We worked energy policy for the military as it relates to the greater energy policy within the United States. So had a big part of that. When I retired from the Air Force back in 2012, Enbridge Energy up in Duluth hired me, so I was a construction project manager for them. And then moved down to Houston, Texas, and worked for a company called Universal Pegasus. So doing big pipeline pump stations and things like that. So energy is kind of my life.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Shane Meckland. I'm 27A now. My 4th term on energy. I think you've been on it with me every year, I'm pretty sure. So I'm happy to be back. I represent the city of Becker-Big Lake. I'm solely in Sherburne County, and I look forward to this. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Hi, my name is State Rep Paul Anderson. Serve 5 counties in west central Minnesota, kind of west of St. Cloud out to the South Dakota border, big ag area. I've not been on this committee in the past, looking forward to it. And one of the things that concerns me is reliability of our electric industry in this state as we move ahead, and kind of lose some of our base load generation, and want to kind of, we have to keep that if we want to keep reliability and affordable electricity. And I hope our committee can work on that and do some good things for the state.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Tom Murphy, State Representative from 9B. I have Eastern Otter Tail and Western Douglas County. My background is I've worked in agriculture for 40 years as of January 15th this year. Been a small business owner for 33 years. So very interested in energy, definitely understand the need. We have a couple of power companies in our area. And it's really important to them that we have the available electricity, the available power to handle the growth that's coming. We're definitely in a position where we're going to need multiple levels of new power that come to us. And so I'm really happy to be on the Energy Committee. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair. I'm Sharon Goblush. I'm the Energy Committee's Legislative Assistant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is A.J. Broviak, similar to Indiana. I come from the Senate. I interned there with Senator Draheim and then did 2 years as the legislative assistant for Senator Rasmussen, and excited to be in the House, excited to be working with the Energy Committee. So, thank you.
My name is Bob Eliff. I've been staffing the Energy Committee since 2004. I would just tell members that all questions are appreciated. Please don't hesitate to contact me.
I'm Ashley Yang. I'm the fiscal analyst that staffs the Energy Committee. I have covered energy since I started in 2021. And as a fiscal analyst, I track all the budget decisions made by the committee. I request fiscal notes and present the completed fiscal notes upon request. And I answer any questions about budget or fiscal issues that you have and provide additional information as requested.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Bob. And just to members, really utilize staff as much as you possibly can, nonpartisan staff, partisan staff as well. Bob and Ashley have just been a great resource over the years and will continue that work. So, and as far as when it comes to lines of communication, obviously, we have an open door policy on second floor at the Centennial Office Building as much as we can. And so welcome all of you members to committee. And with that, today's going to be kind of budget overview day. We're going to kind of run through accounts and where some money is being spent throughout our purview. And with that, I'd like to ask nonpartisan staff to kind of bring Ashley, maybe Ms. Ning and Bob, and we appreciate you both coming. So we'll let you, if you want to head to the front, that would be great. And so, thank you.
I'm going to present members, Mr. Chair, Ashley Eng, House Fiscal. I'm going to present an overview of the budget for the energy area. Also in your packets is 2 spreadsheets from the Consolidated Fund Statement published by MMB that details the fiscal activity of the Renewable Development Fund, as well as the Petroleum Tank Release Cleanup Fund. However, I will send a detailed spreadsheet for the November forecast next week and would be happy to answer questions on the full base budget then. Now I'll review the document titled Legislative Accounts, if you have that. Looking at the table at the top of the page, the general fund budget for the current biennium, base biennium, and the tails. In the Energy Resources Division, there was $79,336,000 spent in fiscal year 2024, and the budget for the fiscal year 2025 is $46,699,000. For the fiscal year 2026, the base budget for the Energy Resources Division is $14,246,000, and as well in fiscal year 27 is $14,246,000. From the Renewable Development Fund in fiscal year 24, there was $42,605,000 spent in the Energy Resources Division, and $52,496,000 in fiscal year '25. So the base of the base budget for the new Renewable Development Fund for the Energy Resources Division is $5 million in fiscal year '26 and $4.6 million in fiscal year '27. And finally, from the Petroleum Tank Release Cleanup Fund, there was $4,561,000 spent in energy resources in fiscal year '24, and then $8,088,000 in fiscal year '25. And the base for energy resources from that fund is $7,882,000 in fiscal year '26 and $7,882,000 in fiscal year '27. This committee also funds the Public Utilities Commission. The general fund amount spent in 2024 was $10,037,000, and in 2025, the budget is $12,128,000 from the general fund. And for the base in fiscal year '26 is $11,555,000 and $11,396,000 in fiscal year '27. Looking down, so that base combines to a total of $51,439,000. So if no other changes were made this session, that would be in the budget for funding the two divisions, or the Energy Resources Division and the Public Utilities Commission. So some more background about legislative accounts. The major funds under this committee is the Renewable Development Fund, the Petroleum Tank Release Cleanup Fund, and Energy Resources Division of Commerce is the large recipient of federal funds for LIHEAP and weatherization programs. Revenue to the Renewable Development Fund comes from payments by utilities for the storage of dry casks of spent fuel located at nuclear power plants in Minnesota. And revenue to the Petroleum Tank Release Cleanup Fund comes from a petroleum distribution fee. This area includes many special revenue fund accounts dedicated to specific programs or projects. And the base for fiscal year 24 and 25, this current biennium, was $27.278 million, and the enacted budget was $190,554,000 as of February. So finally, another area covered under this subject area is the Climate and Economic Development Fund, and this was created to hold a couple of the appropriations made in recent years. This holds the $45 million appropriated in fiscal year '24 for the Climate Innovation Finance Authority. And then it also holds the $190 million for the State Competitiveness Fund. Then last year, the legislature enacted changes to this fund to create flexibility to transfer between these accounts and the forward fund with legislative advisory committee notifications. So that presents the budget for this subject area.
Thank you, Mrs. Day. Just a brief question on for those last two points that you marked, but for the funding for the Climate Innovation Finance Fund, it was reached $45 million, and also for the State Competitiveness Fund. Those are the RECEP money. Do we know kind of where those stand today, those accounts at all, or do we have some of those caught up numbers?
Mr. Chair, I could check that for you. I don't have that in my head right now.
Sounds great. Members, do you have any questions on the budget, or? Yeah, Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm new here, so maybe this is Mr. Chair, thank you. That one of the last bullet points, the base budget increased from 27 to 190 million. Please explain that to me. That's a pretty hefty increase.
Ms. Nye?
So going into the 2023 legislative session, this would be the budget that would be upcoming, or that would be upcoming as of '22. So the 2023 session set the budget, and it was 190 million.
Representative Anderson?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I assume we'll get into this, but again, why such a big increase, I guess is what I'm asking.
Ms. Nye?
Yeah, the committee had a larger target for the 2023 legislative session.
Representative Igo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just following up on Representative Anderson's question, do we know how much of that has been spent or is yet to be appropriated?
Ms. Nye?
Mr. Chair and Representative Igo, the 2024 appropriations have been spent or are carried forward. So out of the whole budget, 79 million has been spent. And then in this fiscal year, there could be carry forward or the second year of appropriations.
Representative Igo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the follow-up. The reason I ask is just in the situation the state of Minnesota's in, we're always trying to look to find ways if there's money left over so we can make sure to give Minnesotans a balanced and fair and equitable budget. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you.
Ms. Singh, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? We have Bob here as well. One of our main portions for this committee is really the pillars of what we believe from our caucus, and that's our goals is to pass legislation that are going to make electricity more affordable, safe, and reliable. And that's really, the three pillars that will kind of surround this committee and its work. And ultimately, create a situation where the state of Minnesota can get out of the way and allow development. And, really from a belief of less state mandates, but more from a policy perspective of an all of and above energy policy. And so a lot of the work that we're looking to do is if there are current moratoriums on particular types of energy, that we're looking at to address a lot of those, to allow developers and energy suppliers to potentially grow into those particular areas. If you look nationally, there are a lot of unique opportunities, a lot of new, unique technologies that we're not looking to mandate, but we are at least allowed businesses to potentially even explore. And so, those are a lot of those goals. And so as we're moving forward and you're visiting with your constituents and you're visiting with members of the public as you're developing bills to bring before a committee, those are particular areas that we're super interested in pursuing. And so appreciate, I think, Mr. Sexton, you are our freshman on committee. And so we really appreciate your expertise in energy area and look forward to getting to know you better. And welcome to energy and really appreciate that. Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this sounds like a good time just sort of, for me, being off for a few sessions now to kind of catch up on some policies. So maybe I have a question for Mr. Eloff. It's good to see one of the smartest guys I've ever worked with on energy policy, and this person has really taught me a lot over the years. So thank you. It's good to see you again, Bob. Community solar gardens was an area that I worked on a lot a few years back. If you could, again, high level, I'm sure we'll have conversations, Mr. Chair, on this down the road. Could you give me kind of an overview of in the state of Minnesota, when I was on it before, we were by far the fastest growing state in the nation about these solar garden ideas and the developers that were running to sign deals, and then private investors would come in and close up the deal afterwards. It's the most expensive energy that is required to be purchased by XL Energy. Has the program, Mr. Eloff, over the last couple of years changed much? Is it still on a very fast, rapid growth? Is it still high priced? Just if I could just get a overview of what does the community solar garden look like currently in Minnesota?
Mr. Eloff.
Representative Swedzinski and Representative Baker, it's good to see you back on the committee as well. There have been a lot of changes since you left the committee, and in fact, I've just finished a publication outlining the changes that took place both at the Public Utilities Commission and as a result of legislative changes that were made in 2023, and I'll make sure and send that to all members of the committee. My recollection is that you're right about Minnesota being in the forefront of developing community solar. I believe at this point we have maybe 1,600 megawatts of solar, and I think about over 900 megawatts is community solar, so it's even more than utilities have provided on solar right now. There was concern about the speed at which that was increasing, and part of the changes that were made in the 2023 legislative session was to put a cap on the annual additions to solar gardens. So that is one thing that has changed a lot. Another thing is that there was concern about low and middle income residential solar not being represented as much as it was thought when that program was first begun. So a different kind of program was devised to incentivize more of those customers to go with community solar. There's been a lot of changes since in the last few years. I think people were, both the Public Utilities Commission and the legislature were responding to some of the concerns that have been spoken about for several years as far as the growth and the cost of the program.
Representative Baker, follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Eloff. And I'm looking forward to the report. I do have a lot of catching up to do. So I knew how, again, my local property owners were concerned about just all these popping up, and so I'm looking forward to seeing the changes to that. If local jurisdictions are able to not approve some of these solar gardens, and again, I think there's a lot of county commissioners and some planning and zoning that were really having some heartburn out in rural Minnesota. So I'm looking forward to just catching up, and that's what I look forward to. And finally, I know that I've had some constituents up here. I know others will probably come through this too. There was a lot of issues with this transferring transformers from rooftop units to getting on the grid. There was a real backlog, I think, with the PUC and some regulations about able to have them sell to some of the smaller rooftop units. And if you know anything about that, or if that's maybe something down the road, I can ask more Xcel Energy or PUC. I know there was some really frustrated solar developers that are in my area that were concerned that we are not getting to that fast enough. So is there any update on that, Mr. Eloff?
Mr. Eloff?
Representative Swedzinski, Representative Baker, yes, there is a very large backup in what's called the queue of projects, many of which have interconnection agreements already signed, but they're still waiting to get on. In fact, I just read something this morning. MISO, the Mid-Continent Internet Independent System Operator, which is a 15-state organization that includes Minnesota in terms of sending electricity where it's needed, said there are 56 gigawatts in the queue for MISO. So that's a lot of backed up demand. And yes, it's a problem that both MISO and individual utilities are facing too, because for a lot of them, the distribution system needs to be upgraded to be able to handle the new capacity that's coming on board. And there have been some legislation that addresses that too, and I'll make sure to send that to everyone as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Baker, any other questions? Representative Meckland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Eloff, is it the backup where we were just talking about, is that the PUC or more so on like the feeder lines and the transmission lines not being up to speed to be able to handle it all? I mean, I think I've had some of the same frustrations expressed to me in the past few years.
Mr. Eloff.
Representative Swedzinski, Representative Meckland. The PUC directly doesn't have a say in this. These are contracts that have to be negotiated between utilities and providers. The PUC does kind of regulate how that gets done. But I think a lot of the frustration is on the part of developers who feel that, the utilities can't do it fast enough. And I'm sure the utilities would like to come here and tell you about the problems they face in handling this very large amount of new demand.
Representative Mecklin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for clarification on that. One other thing, is there like a map of all the community solar gardens, or like some kind of like a pin drop, like where to see where there are and like how much there are throughout the state?
Representative Swedzinski, Representative Meckland, the only utility that is required to do community solar gardens is Excel. Other utilities can do so on a voluntary basis. I will look to find a map if I can, but I would expect most of them to be in the Excel service area.
And Representative Mecklin, I think that is, those resources probably do exist to some extent, and as this committee is going to be moving forward, I think some of the arguments made in the community solar area and the solar gardens area is that they've the program originally was designed to promote solar, right? And so from a pricing standpoint, it was advantageous to build those projects, and because of the lack of any development at all. And one of the fears and one of the major concerns that we have is that it's simply it's pushing out other projects, right? So if you have an industrial solar type system, from a rate that utilities would be, if they were going to build it themselves, that they would be paying for and not the rate the utilities pay, but ultimately the customers, right? And so they call it a fuel charge. Essentially, that's one of the most expensive, fuel energy deriving it, right? And so when those conversations are happening, and they go to the front of the queue, and so when utilities are going before the commission themselves, not only do they have their own plan, so they present, this is what we would have in mind for a total need when it comes to energy, right? They're also taking consideration of that need or want to build that, and how community solar would potentially impact that, because it's been so rampant, and there has been so much, and the rules, the regulations are so much different, particularly in that area for how it's deployed and developed, whether or not they have room, whether it can get interconnection, Mr. Eloff spoke a little bit about some changes when it came to streamlining of permitting, and so that was the work that Representative Listlegard worked on, myself a little bit, as far as looking at, how we can build projects. And the idea behind that is really sending a message that, one, we're being, very diligent in it, but also how can we learn things from the streamlining of that permitting process in one particular area when it comes to power lines being built across the state, and how can we transfer those same ideas and savings and streamlining into other areas of permitting. And so I think that's really, when you think about a first strike, that was particularly where, I think Republicans and Democrats agreed, particularly in that area, as kind of a first bite at that apple, that, permitting reform needs to happen. And, we've heard over and over and over again about businesses waiting months or years, in some cases decades, for a permit. And whether it's a mine in northern Minnesota, right? I mean, the estimates are, when it comes to, from a mining perspective, if this green revolution is going to continue, that we have to mine the same amount of copper that's been mined over the last 500 years in the next 20 years. And so, those are real concerns that we need to have. And, often it's if we can push out development, and you can, you think about, we had a hockey game last night, Edmonton Oilers, right? There's a reason why they call Edmonton Oilers the Oilers, right? Is because they have unique resources to that region that benefit not only them, but the economy as a whole. And so, we have a very unique, area in northern Minnesota that has a unique set of resources that we need to be able to look at, and how do we develop it? Because it's going to get mined, right? It's going to be mined someplace. And, if we believe as Minnesotans that we can do it better, that we can regulate it better, that we need to look at opportunities. It's something even Biden understands, that we need to develop those resources and develop them right here. And so, permitting reform across the board, across a vast line of businesses is a big part. We're going to do what we can in this committee, but also help promote those parts in other committees as well. So Representative Mecklin, you have a follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In part, what I was trying to find out is if there is like some data that exists as to like, as far as community solar, how many are there throughout the state? How many acres do they consume? Utility solar, same thing. I mean, I know where there's one large one for sure, because I drive by it every day. But, and the amount of like land and, what type of land it is that was used for that purpose, or what it was converted from to become that usage, I think would be good information going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I don't think that was a question, but thank you, Representative Mecklin. So, Representative Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My concern that I want to try to get a little bit of a focus on is just the use of ag land, especially our prime ag land, especially along I-94 that kind of goes back and forth from where I'm from. But my question really is regarding solar, and have you had much experience with solar fencing? I was at a U of M conference in December, and they had research that was done on solar fencing. We already own the right-of-ways to a lot of our main highways. It could be something that electric companies could utilize with our permission, but I'm just wondering if you have any background on solar fences at all.
Mr. Eloff?
Representative Swedzinski and Representative Murphy. The first thing that came into my mind is that Representative Kraft had a bill last year to kind of incentivize the Department of Transportation to look more favorably on those kinds of installations. For the life of me, I can't remember if it was enacted or not, but I'll go back and check. But I think it speaks directly to what your concerns are.
Representative Murphy?
It might have been something through the U of M that it was actually, paid for some research on, because they did have the research on it. It just would alleviate a lot of our, the use on ag land if we research that all fully, and maybe the power companies would welcome that. We do need a mass amount of new power, and if that's one way that we can get it, and maybe take another look at our prime tillable acres, that'd be well worth it. So, so anyway, I'd like to learn more about if that's an option, and if the electric companies might be interested in that as well, so.
Thank you, Representative Murphy. Ag land usage is obviously a big concern. When you look at, as Wayne Gretzky used to say, what made him great is to understand where the puck was going to be, not where it currently is. And, as we see development within solar particularly, we are, I think Representative Mecklin can probably tell the story better than most when it comes to what large tracts of land taken off the market, when it comes to those things. And, just as we have potential mineral resources in northern Minnesota, or even gravel resources on the University of Minnesota campus, to understand that there are best usage, right? And we do have an ability and, quite frankly, a responsibility to understand that you wouldn't, if you have a great gravel resource, it probably wouldn't be a great idea to build a parking lot or a parking ramp over the top till you've at least extracted the gravel, which is a need, right? And so just as northern Minnesota has a great iron resource, a great copper, a great nickel resource, southwest Minnesota has a wind resource, but it also has a good land resource. And so when we're having these conversations this session, pointing to the idea of prime farmland and the uniqueness of it, that, those things as a society, as a rural economy, as an ag economy, those things all need to be protected as well. So just as we wouldn't build a park on top of an iron mine when, we want to be competitive, also, we shouldn't necessarily be building a solar farm on prime farmland, which is some of the best ground, quite frankly, in the world. That is an irresponsibility, and I think that's within the purview of this committee, and that's really one of the things that we'll be looking at. So thank you for your concern in that area. Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You got me thinking what you were I'll learn this one of these days. Thanks, Mr. Chair. You got me thinking as you were talking about that. And not only the number of acres being taken out of production, out of ag production, but the leases being offered to landowners to convert their land to solar panels. I've heard $1,000 up to $1,500 an acre or whatever on a 20-year lease, for example. No farmer can match that in terms of competing to keep land or pick up additional land. So it's not just losing acres, it's also the imbalance of trying to compete against that. And when that happens, and if you see land valued at those types of figures, it impacts your tax levies, things like that. So it's really a big impact on greater Minnesota. And I hope our committee can really look at that and come up with some ideas that could lessen the impact of this expanding solar and even wind projects on rural economies and ag land in Minnesota.
That was good. Thank you, Representative Anderson. One of the articles that I personally read was just from a federal subsidy standpoint when it comes to solar development that, and I might be wrong on this number, but if you did the numbers on a per acre basis for solar development, the stuff coming out of the Fed would equal about $2,500 an acre per year, and how that dynamic can shift from a rural economy. That's really unfortunate, right? If you're a small operator, I think, one of the strong messages we saw last session was the need and the want to make sure that small farms can stay small, but also be competitive. And, when it comes to just actual going after a limited resource, which is prime farmland, if you've got folks that have development on their land versus someone that doesn't, and then when it comes to competing for that piece of ground that is for rent, that is next door, that hadn't had that development, I think we understand who's probably going to win that argument and who's not. And so, those are real conversations we have. And Representative Sexton, did you have a question as well? Go ahead.
Chair Swazinski and everybody else, as a freshman and first one here, and looking at figure 3 of this very good presentation, I guess I'm concerned in understanding the budget, how we go from a 7.9 in the general fund, $1 million budget in 24 and 46 and 25, and dropping off so quickly in 26, 27, as well as the line item in the renewable development budget, very high and dropping off significantly. We all know that things carry through, contracts are established. Is that realistic, or is that something we should look at in the overall budget crisis that we're facing to make sure that the budget really is going to match these numbers? Or are people going to come back with their hands open saying, oh, we started these contracts, we need more money?
Well, I can maybe answer that, Ms. Ng can maybe kind of finish it up. But, a lot of that, Representative Sexton, the budget that was passed, had a fair amount of federal cash that kind of flowed through the state, and it was one-time money. And so, obviously, whenever you start a state program or a government program, it's kind of a cat of 9 lives, really. It takes quite a bludgeoning to get rid of them. I think that's going to be probably a lot of the things that we do potentially here. Right. Is that we're going to have a lot of folks that want to talk about their success stories with one-time money and how they want to prolong their existence. And
that is the summary of my concerns, sir.
Yeah. So, Ms. Ng, did I answer that up to okay, sounds great. Awesome. Any other questions, Representative Murphy, or did you have your hand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a quick add-on to Representative Anderson's comment. I had a conversation with a county commissioner in Douglas County, and he was talking about the real cost of a number of solar farms that came into the area. And he said on a property tax, their property taxes were going up about 20%. There's nothing that's going to be more harmful to farms than if we have big expenses like this that are brand new. And so it has nothing to do with farming, but it has everything to do with their cost to stay in farming. And so I just wanted to add on to that. Thank you.
Representative Igo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just have to make a comment, because for a minute there, I thought we had a ranger chair in the committee with how much we're talking about mining. And I just really appreciate that conversation being a part of what we're talking about today, because it is really important. Minnesota has a chance to be a circular economy where we can mine, manufacture, produce, and recycle everything that's needed for an electrified economy. And whether, we're going towards a place where electrical demand is exponentially growing every single year. So we're going to have to be on top of that. I'm glad that this conversation's incorporating that. And also just have to say thank you to Mr. Eliff as well. When I first joined this committee in 21, you were a huge help to me in learning everything I need to know about this. And you're a great resource for this committee. So I'm really excited to be working with you again. Thank you for being here. And just, these are good conversations to have. And let's put Minnesota on track.
Thank you, Representative Weigel. And, I think that just continues to spark that, so as we're setting agenda items, looking at kind of what is coming our way when it comes to AI, when it comes to data centers, when it comes to energy consumption, and the ability to reliably deliver energy to those entities. And, I don't think there's too many folks that would argue that a digital economy is going to be a continuing growing part of what we do, and especially here in Minnesotans, and what that means to energy demand, and how we can craft legislation to, one, make sure that they are here if that they so choose, two, that they have the reliability that they need to be successful, so that those jobs are not built 30 feet on the other side of a state line, and then also just make sure that those families and those businesses that are affected, from an affordability standpoint, that we can also do it in an area that makes sense. And so, there's a lot of talk on, what Germany has done when it comes to energy production. I would argue the fact that, having an energy rate that's 5 times higher than what we pay is probably not the direction that we have. And, this is, one of the big things that we really need to look at, because that is the drive, right? The drive is to look to our neighbors to the east and what we used to call the old world. And just because there's one of the things that I learned, Mr. Sexton, as a freshman, is that there's a big difference between an idea and a good idea. Sounds good. So.
Just so you know, I lived in Germany for 18 months, so I can share more on that too.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, so members and folks, we will plan on meeting next Tuesday, the 21st, and we'll be setting our first bill hearing up, and we'll be beginning the conversation on a nuclear moratorium. And so be ready and enjoy. And with that, we are adjourned.